Hack's whiskers twitched as he ran through the final pre-race checks on his navigation console. The air in the hangar bay crackled with tension, a palpable mix of excitement and dread that seemed to grow with each passing race. But this time, something felt different. The other crews gave the Broken Promise a wide berth, their expressions a mixture of awe and suspicion. "Quite the reputation we've built," A. Killian muttered, coming to stand beside Hacked. "Can't tell if they're more afraid of racing against us or being seen talking to us." Before Hacked could respond, a commotion at the entrance to their docking bay caught his attention. A figure in official diplomatic robes was arguing heatedly with security personnel, gesturing emphatically towards the Broken Promise. "Looks like our friend from last time is back," Hacked squeaked, nudging Killian. Captain Jeb Sheets emerged from the ship, his face set in a grim mask, as he approached the agitated diplomat. As they drew closer, Hack's sensitive ears picked up fragments of their heated exchange. "Must speak with you immediately, Captain." "The situation has escalated," the diplomat was saying, his voice low and urgent. Jeb glanced around, clearly uncomfortable with the attention they were drawing. With a sharp nod, he led the diplomat into the relative privacy of the Broken Promise's cargo hold. Hacked and Killian exchanged a look before quietly following, positioning themselves just within earshot. "All right, you've got my attention," Jeb's voice carried a hint of impatience. "But make it quick. We're on a tight schedule here." The diplomat took a deep breath. "First, allow me to properly introduce myself. I'm Donovan Cruz, Special Envoy from your home system." "Fancy title," Jeb replied dryly. "I assume you're not here just to exchange pleasantries." "Indeed not." Cruz's tone grew even more serious. "Your attempt to expose the corruption in these races. It worked, but only to a point. You've stirred the hornet's nest, Captain. The officials are scrambling, but they're also doubling down on their efforts to, well, to put it bluntly, to ensure you don't cross any more finish lines." Hacked felt a chill run down his spine at Cruz's words. He'd suspected their actions would have consequences, but to hear it confirmed. "We've taken steps to protect you and your crew," Cruz continued. "I've personally hired a contingent of loyal soldiers from your homeworld. They'll be providing security between races. But during the races themselves, you'll be on your own." Jeb's voice was hard when he responded. "We always have been, but I appreciate the effort. What else?" "I'm doing everything I can diplomatically to secure your freedom, all of you. Not just you, Captain. But it's an uphill battle. These races, they're tied into political and economic webs that go far beyond mere entertainment." Hack's mind reeled at the implications. Just how deep did this conspiracy go? Cruz lowered his voice further, forcing Hack to strain to hear. "There are whispers, Captain. The officials are still targeting you specifically. If anything, you're an even bigger prize now. The race you're about to enter. It's designed to be nearly impossible. The anomalies you'll be navigating. They're not just natural phenomena. Some suspect they're artificially generated, specifically too." He trailed off, but the unspoken conclusion hung heavy in the air. To eliminate us, Hack thought, his fur standing on end. Suddenly, a loud klaxon blared throughout the hangar. "All racers to your ships. Race commencement in 10 minutes. Cruz cursed under his breath. "I have to go. Remember, trust no one outside your crew. And Captain, be careful out there. The universe is watching, and many are rooting for you. Don't let them down." As Cruz hurried away, quickly lost in the pre-race chaos, Jeb turned to find Hacked and Killian standing there. His expression softened slightly at the sight of his crew. "I assume you heard all that he asked, though it wasn't really a question." Hack nodded, his large eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination. "What do we do, Captain?" Jeb's jaw set in a hard line, his eyes glinting with a fierce resolve that Hack had come to associate with their most daring maneuvers. "We race, we win, and we show these corrupt officials that it'll take more than a few space anomalies to stop the crew of the Broken Promise." As they made their way to the bridge, final preparations underway all around them, Hacked couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to plunge into something far more dangerous than any race they'd faced before. But as he took his place at the navigation console, Surrounded by the crew that had become his family, he felt a surge of determination. Let them try their worst, he thought. We've beaten the odds before. We'll do it again. The starting klaxon blared, and the broken promise surged forward, joining the pack of racers as they hurtled towards the shimmering, twisting field of anomalies that marked the beginning of the course. As the laws of physics began to warp around them, Hack steeled himself for the challenge ahead. This wasn't just a race anymore. It was a fight for survival. The moment the broken promise crossed the starting line, Hack knew this race would be unlike anything they'd faced before. The ship plunged into a shimmering field of spatial distortions, and immediately, every instrument on Hack's console went haywire. Captain Hack squeaked, his paws dancing frantically across the controls. I'm losing all standard navigational references. These anomalies, they're rewriting the laws of physics around us. Jeb's face was a mask of concentration as he wrestled with the ship's controls. Give me something to work with, Hacked. Anything. Hack's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the chaos unfolding before them. Swirling vortexes of energy pulsed in impossible colors, while areas of space seemed to fold in on themselves. In the distance, he could see other ships being affected in bizarre ways, some stretching like taffy, others seeming to phase in and out of existence. I think I see a pattern, Hack said, his voice filled with uncertainty. The anomalies, they're not completely random. There's a flow to them, like currents in an ocean. Then that's what we'll use, Jeb replied, his tone brooking no argument. Plot us a course following these currents, and someone tell me what's happening to the other ships. Killian's gruff voice cut through the tension. It's a bloodbath out there, Cap. I've counted at least 3 ships torn apart by these anomalies. And, wait, what the hell? Hack glanced at the view screen and felt his fur stand on end. One of the leading ships had just entered a particularly violent anomaly and emerged, changed. Its hull was now covered in a crystalline structure that seemed to be growing, consuming the ship from the outside in. Cosmic dust, Killian muttered. These aren't just space anomalies. They're weapons. The grim reality of Cruz's warning sank in. This wasn't just a race, it was an elaborate execution attempt disguised as sport. Before they could dwell on this revelation, the broken promise shuddered violently. We've got company, Killian shouted. 3 ships on our tail, and they're not here to make friends. Energy blasts lanced past them, made even more deadly by the unpredictable way they interacted with the surrounding anomalies. One shot that missed them wide suddenly curved back, warped by a spatial distortion, and nearly clipped their starboard engine. Evasive maneuvers, Jeb ordered, sending the ship into a series of wild spins and dives that had Hack's stomach doing flips. As they wove through the chaotic tapestry of space-time, Hack noticed something peculiar. Captain, our pursuers, they seem to know exactly where these anomalies are. It's like they have a map. Jeb's eyes narrowed. Confirmation of what Cruz told us. This course was designed to take us out. All right, if they want to play dirty, we'll just have to be smarter. Hack, can you predict where new anomalies might form based on the patterns you're seeing? Hack swallowed hard. What Jeb was asking was beyond anything he'd ever attempted. But as he looked at the swirling chaos around them, at the determination on the faces of his crewmates, he knew he had to try. I think so, Captain. But it's going to be risky. Very risky. Risk is all we've got left, Jeb replied. Do it. What followed was a harrowing dance of precision flying and split-second decisions. Hack called out predictions of forming anomalies, and Jeb piloted the ship with inhuman skill, using the very fabric of warped space-time as both shield and weapon against their attackers. They watched in a mixture of awe and horror as one of their pursuing ships, unable to match their maneuvers, plunged into a newly formed anomaly. The ship seemed to turn inside out, its crew's screams cutting off abruptly as it vanished from existence. Hours passed in a blur of constant tension and near misses. The broken promise emerged from the worst of the anomaly field, battered but intact, now holding a narrow lead in the race. As they approached the designated rest point marking the end of the first day's run, Hack allowed himself a moment of relief. They had survived, for now. but glancing at the determined faces of his crewmates, he knew the real battle was just beginning. This race had become more than a contest of speed and skill. It was a fight for survival, for justice, and for the very nature of reality itself. And as the broken promise docked for repairs, Hack steeled himself for what was to come. The gloves were off now. If the officials wanted to turn this race into an execution, they were about to learn just how hard the crew of the Broken Promise could fight back. The Broken Promise hovered at the edge of the next anomaly field, the crew tense and silent as they contemplated the challenges ahead. Hack's paws trembled slightly as he reviewed the data from their first day of racing, his mind reeling from the impossible physics they'd encountered. Jeb's voice cut through the silence, firm and resolute. "All right, crew, we've seen what we're up against. It's clear now that this isn't just a race, it's an execution attempt disguised as sport. We've played by their rules, we've taken the high road, but it's time to face facts. If we don't fight back with everything we've got, we won't make it out of this alive." Hack looked up from his console, seeing the grim determination reflected on the faces of his crewmates. Killian was the first to speak up, his gruff voice carrying a note of anticipation. "About damn time, Cap. You saying we can finally take the gloves off?" Jeb nodded, his eyes hard. "That's exactly what I'm saying. Killian, I want you to unleash the full potential of our weapons systems. No more warning shots, no more disabling attacks. If they're trying to kill us, we fight back just as hard." Killian's scarred face split into a feral grin. "With pleasure, Cap. I've got a few surprises I've been itching to try out." "Act. A nay," Jeb continued, turning to the hybrid navigator. "Your understanding of these anomalies is our greatest asset. I need you to push yourself further. Don't just predict them, find ways we can use them to our advantage. If you see an opportunity for an impossible maneuver, call it out." "I'll make it happen." Hack swallowed hard, nodding. "I'll do my best, Captain. I think I'm starting to see patterns in how the anomalies interact with each other. If we time it right, we might be able to create chain reactions." "Good. That's the kind of thinking we need." Jeb's gaze swept over the rest of the crew. "Everyone else, stay sharp. We're not just racing anymore, we're fighting for our lives and for the truth. Whatever happens out there, we stick together. Understood?" A chorus of affirmatives rang out across the bridge. Hack felt a surge of pride and determination. They were outcasts, criminals in the eyes of the galaxy. But in this moment, they were a family united against impossible odds. As they plunged back into the anomaly field, the change in their approach was immediately apparent. Killian's weapons blazed with newfound ferocity, each shot precisely calculated to use the spatial distortions to their advantage. Energy beams curved around impossible angles, striking pursuing ships with devastating accuracy. Hack's mind raced as he called out maneuvers, his understanding of the anomalies growing with each passing moment. "Captain, sharp dive into the vortex at 2 o'clock, then immediate ascent. It'll slingshot us past the next 3 ships." Jeb's hands flew across the controls, executing the move with inhuman precision. The Broken Promise plunged into a swirling mass of distorted space-time, the ship groaning under the strain. For a heart-stopping moment, Hack feared he'd miscalculated. Then they were bursting free, catapulted forward at impossible speed, leaving their pursuers far behind. 3 bogies, coming in hot on our starboard side, Killian called out. "They're charging up something big." Hack's eyes darted to his console, taking in the approaching threat and the surrounding anomalies. In a flash of inspiration, he saw their opportunity. "Captain." Hard turned to starboard, straight at them. "There's a phase shift anomaly forming right in their path." Jeb didn't hesitate, swinging the ship around in a gut-wrenching turn. They hurtled towards their attackers, playing a game of chicken with ships that wanted them dead. At the last possible second, the Broken Promise rolled, slipping past their enemies just as the phase shift anomaly engulfed them. The pursuing ships seemed to flicker, their very atoms struggling to hold together as they phased in and out of reality. When the anomaly passed, only scattered debris remained. As the hours wore on, the Broken Promise carved a path of destruction and impossible maneuvers through the anomaly field. Ships that once hunted them now fled at their approach. Hack's predictions, combined with Jeb's piloting, created a dance of destruction that left their enemies baffled and terrified. But the constant battling took its toll. Warning lights flashed across Hack's console as systems strained under the pressure of their relentless pace. All integrity down to 62%, an engineer called out. "We've got microfractures forming all along the port side." Jeb's voice was tight but unwavering. "Reroute power from non-essential systems. We keep pushing forward." As they approached the end of the day's run, Hack realized with a start that they were still in the lead. Despite everything thrown at them, despite the entire race being rigged against them, they were winning. The Broken Promise limped towards the rest station, battered but unbroken. As they docked for repairs, Hack caught Jeb's eye. The captain gave him a nod of approval that filled Hack with pride. They had survived another day, pushing themselves and their ship to the very limits. But Hack knew the real test was yet to come. The officials, seeing their failure to eliminate the Broken Promise, would be desperate now. As the crew settled in for a brief rest, Hack's mind was already racing, preparing for the challenges of the next day. They had taken off the gloves, shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of. Whatever came next, Hack knew one thing for certain: the crew of the Broken Promise would face it head-on, together. The race was far from over, but for the first time, Hack allowed himself to believe that they might not just survive this, they might actually win. The docking bay hummed with activity as crews rushed to repair their battered ships during the race's halfway point. Hack's sensitive ears twitched at the cacophony of welding torches and shouted orders, but his attention was focused on the datapad before him. He'd retreated to a quiet corner of the Broken Promise, poring over the data from their first day's run through the anomaly field. A shadow fell across his screen, and Hack looked up to see Jeb standing over him, his face etched with fatigue and concern. "Any insights?" Hack the captain asked, his voice low. Hack's whiskers quivered with excitement. "I think so, Captain. There's a pattern to these anomalies. It's subtle, but it's there. Look at this." He pulled up a holographic display, showing the path they'd taken through the anomaly field. Colored lines represented different types of spatial distortions. See how they interact. It's like a dance. Each anomaly affects the others around it. If we can predict these interactions. Jeb's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. We could navigate them even more effectively, maybe even use them to our advantage. Their discussion was interrupted by Killian's gruff voice. "Cap, we've got a situation. That diplomat, Cruz, he's back, and he's insisting on speaking with us. Says it's urgent." Moments later, they were huddled in the cargo hold, Cruz's holographic form flickering before them. The diplomat's face was drawn with worry. "I don't have much time," Cruz said without preamble. "The officials are in chaos. Your performance today, it's upset a lot of plans." "Good," Killian growled. "Let them squirm." Cruz shook his head. "You don't understand. They're desperate now. I've uncovered information about which officials are most deeply involved in this corruption. They're the ones gunning for you hardest." He transmitted a data packet, which Hack quickly decrypted. Names, faces, and detailed information about several high-ranking race officials scrolled across their screens. "This is bigger than just these races," Cruz continued. "These people, they're connected to interstellar corporations, black market weapons dealers. This goes deep." Jeb's jaw clenched. "So what do we do with this information?" "Stay alive," Cruz said grimly. "Keep racing. Keep winning. Every victory chips away at their power structure. But be careful. They'll stop at nothing to take you out now." As Cruz's hologram flickered out, the crew of the Broken Promise was left in stunned silence. It was Hack who finally spoke up, his voice small but determined. "Captain, I've been analyzing the race data. There are shortcuts through the anomaly fields. Dangerous ones, but they could give us a significant advantage." Killian's eyes narrowed. "You mean like the shortcuts other crews have been taking? The ones that get their people executed if they're caught?" Hack nodded solemnly. "Exactly those. With my understanding of the anomalies, we might be able to use them more safely, but it would mean playing by their rules." Jeb finished, his voice heavy. Sacrificing our principles for a better chance at winning. A tense debate erupted among the crew. Some argued that with the stakes so high they couldn't afford to handicap themselves. Others insisted that compromising their values would make them no better than the corrupt officials they were fighting against. Hack found himself torn. The scientist in him was fascinated by the possibilities these shortcuts presented, but he couldn't shake the image of that crew member being ejected into space, sacrificed for a moment's advantage. As the argument reached a fever pitch, Jeb's voice cut through the noise. Enough. We didn't come this far by abandoning who we are. We race clean, we race hard, and we show the universe that we're better than those trying to destroy us. A hush fell over the crew, followed by murmurs of agreement. Hack felt a swell of pride in his captain, in his family. Hack, Jeb continued, turning to the Hibbard navigator. You keep working on understanding those anomalies. We'll use every legal advantage we can get. Killian, I want our weapons running at 110% tomorrow. They think they've seen us unleashed. They haven't seen anything yet. As the crew dispersed to make final preparations, Hack returned to his data, his mind racing with possibilities. They were heading into the most dangerous part of the race, targeted by corrupt officials, flying through physics-defying anomalies. And yet, he couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. They had integrity. They had skill. And most importantly, they had each other. As the warning klaxon sounded, signaling 1 hour until the race resumed, Hack took his place at the navigation console. The starting klaxon blared, jolting Hack out of his focused state. The broken promise surged forward, plunging once more into the chaotic maelstrom of the anomaly field. Immediately, Hack's console lit up with warnings and readouts, the patterns he'd studied all night coming to life before his eyes. Multiple bogies on approach, Captain Killian barked. Looks like they've been waiting for us. Jeb's voice was steel. Hacked, give me a course. Killian, light him up. Hack's paws flew across his console, his mind racing to apply his newfound understanding of the anomalies. Hard to port, Captain. There's a gravitational wave forming that should slingshot us past the first wave of attackers. The broken promise banked hard, riding the invisible current of warped space-time. They shot past their would-be ambushers, leaving them scrambling in their wake. But the respite was brief. The anomaly field seemed even more violent today, reality itself twisting and churning around them. Hack watched in horror as a ship ahead of them strayed too close to a phase shift anomaly, its hull seeming to turn inside out before imploding with a silent flash. Captain, we've got a problem, Hack squeaked, his fur standing on end. The anomalies are becoming more unstable. It's like they're feeding off each other, growing stronger. Jeb's jaw clenched. Can you plot us a safe course through this mess? Hack swallowed hard. Safe? No, but I can give us our best chance. What followed was the most intense flying of their lives. Hack called out directions rapid fire, guiding them through a maze of spatial distortions that defied comprehension. Jeb's piloting was beyond masterful, threading the broken promise through gaps that seemed to close the instant they passed. Killian's weapons blazed continuously, holding off wave after wave of attacks. But for every ship they disabled, 2 more seemed to take its place. They're throwing everything they've got at us, Killian growled. Whole damn armada out here. Hack's eyes widened as he spotted something on his sensors. Captain, 3 ships ahead there. They're taking a shortcut, diving straight into a Class 9 anomaly. The crew watched in tense silence as the ships ahead vanished into a swirling vortex of impossible colors. Moments later, 2 of them re-emerged, hundreds of kilometers ahead. The third was nowhere to be seen. Jeb's voice was grim. That's the price of cheating, folks. We stick to our course. But their principled stand was costing them. Hack's heart sank as he realized they had slipped to 4th place. The remaining shortcuts were looking more tempting by the second. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Massive energy spike, Hack cried out. Some kind of artificial anomaly forming directly ahead. A swirling portal of pure chaos materialized before them, easily large enough to swallow their ship whole. Hack's sensors were going haywire, unable to make sense of the readings. It's a trap, Jeb muttered. Designed specifically for us. Hacked options. Hack's mind raced, calculations and probabilities flashing through his thoughts. There was a way through, he was sure of it, but the risk. Captain, he said, his voice surprisingly steady, I've got a path. But it's going to take everything we've got. And if I'm off by even a fraction. Jeb's eyes met his, filled with unwavering trust. Do it. What happened next would be talked about in racing circles for years to come. The broken promise dove straight into the heart of the artificial anomaly, its hull groaning under forces that threatened to tear it apart. Hack's voice was a constant stream of directions, guiding Jeb through a series of maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. They corkscrewed through layers of warped space-time, riding the edge of gravitational waves that could have crushed them in an instant. At one point, the ship seemed to be in two places at once, phase shifted between realities. And then, with a final burst of speed that pushed their engines far beyond their limits, they erupted from the other side of the anomaly. Behind them, the artificial construct collapsed in on itself, taking two pursuing ships with it. As the crew caught their breath, realizing they had survived the impossible, Killian's whoop of victory filled the bridge. Would you look at that? We're in first place, baby. But their celebration was short-lived. As they approached the final stretch, a distress call crackled over their comms. One of the shortcut-taking ships had become stranded in a pocket of null space, slowly being erased from existence. Hack looked to Jeb, seeing the conflict in his captain's eyes. To stop would almost certainly cost them the race. To go on would mean leaving fellow racers to a fate worse than death. Jeb's decision, when it came, was instant. Hacked, plot an intercept course. Killian, ready the tractor beams. We're not leaving anyone behind. As they swung around to attempt a daring rescue, Hacked felt a surge of pride in his crew, in his family. They might not win this race, but in this moment, they had proven themselves true champions. The final leg of the anomaly run stretched before them, filled with danger and uncertainty. The broken promise hung in space, tractor beams straining as they pulled the stricken ship from the pocket of null space. Hack's paws flew over his console, making constant adjustments to keep them from being drawn in themselves. We've got them, Captain Hack called out, his voice tight with tension. But our engines are redlining. We can't hold this for long. Jeb's face was a mask of concentration. Killian, moment we break free, I want full power to engines. We're not out of this race yet. With a final, wrenching pull, both ships burst free from the anomaly's grasp. The rescued crew's thanks crackled over the comms, but there was no time to respond. The broken promise surged forward, engines screaming as they pushed far beyond their design limits. Status report, Jeb barked. Hack's eyes darted across his readouts. We're in third place, Captain. 2 ships ahead, 4 behind. But, he hesitated, whiskers twitching nervously. Spit it out, Hack Jeb urged. The anomaly's there, converging. I've never seen anything like it. It's as if they're forming one massive, final obstacle. As if to confirm his words, the space ahead of them began to warp and twist. A swirling vortex of impossible colors and shapes formed, stretching across the entire width of the race corridor. There was no way around it, only through. This is it. Folks, Jeb's voice was steel. Everything we've learned, everything we've fought for, it all comes down to this. Hacked, I need your best calculations. Killian, be ready for anything. Everyone else, hold on tight. We're going to show these corrupt officials exactly what the crew of the Broken Promise is made of. As they approached the final anomaly, Hack's mind raced. All the patterns he'd observed, all the data he'd analyzed, it was time to put it to the ultimate test. Captain, he squeaked, a note of uncertainty in his voice. I think I see a path. But it's insane. We'd be shifting through multiple phases of reality, riding gravitational waves that could tear us apart. The timing would have to be perfect. Jeb's response was immediate. Do it. What followed was a sequence of maneuvers that defied description. The Broken Promise plunged into the heart of the anomaly, reality fracturing around them. At times, Hacked could swear he saw multiple versions of their ship, each taking a slightly different path. Jeb's piloting was beyond masterful, executing Hack's instructions with inhuman precision. They corkscrewed through layers of warped space-time, narrowly avoiding collapse points that could have erased them from existence. Alarms blared as the ship's hull creaked and groaned, pushed far beyond its limits. Warning lights flashed across every console, systems failing one by one. "We're losing structural integrity," Killian shouted over the din. "She's breaking apart." But Jeb's voice remained steady. "Hold together, old girl. Just a little longer." With a final, reality-bending maneuver that had Hack's stomach doing flips, they burst free of the anomaly. The sudden return to normal space was almost as jarring as the anomaly itself. For a moment there was silence on the bridge, broken only by the crackle of shorting systems and the heavy breathing of the crew. Then Killian's whoop of joy filled the air. "We did it, we're through. And, by all the stars, we're in the lead." Hack's paws trembled as he confirmed the readings. They had indeed emerged ahead of the pack, the final stretch of the race laid out before them. But their trials weren't over yet. As they approached the finish line, a massive coordinated attack struck from all sides. It seemed every remaining ship in the race had united with one goal: stop the broken promise at all costs. "This is it," Jeb called out. "Killian, give them everything we've got left. Hacked, plot us the fastest course to that finish line. Everyone else, divert all remaining power to engines and shields. We end this now." The final moments of the race were a blur of frantic action. Killian's weapons blazed, holding off waves of attackers. Hack's calculations guided them through a final gauntlet of smaller anomalies that had formed in the wake of the larger one. With a bone-jarring shudder and a final burst of speed that threatened to shake the ship apart, the broken promise crossed the finish line mere seconds ahead of their nearest competitor. As the realization of their victory sank in, the bridge erupted in cheers and embraces. They had done the impossible. Again. In the aftermath, as repair drones swarmed around their battered ship, the crew gathered on the bridge. The mood was a mixture of elation and solemn reflection. "We did more than win a race today," Jeb began, his voice carrying a weight of emotion. "We proved that integrity and skill can triumph over corruption and brute force. Every life we saved, every challenge we overcame, it all sends a message. The system is broken, but we won't be broken by it." Hack nodded, feeling a swell of pride. "What happens now, Captain?" As if in answer, a priority communication alert flashed on the main screen. It was Cruz. "Congratulations on your victory," the diplomat began, his face a mixture of awe and urgency. "Your performance. It sparked something. Investigations are being launched. Questions are being asked in high places. The corrupt officials are scrambling." Jeb's eyes narrowed. "And the races?" Cruz's expression turned grim. "They'll continue, for now. But change is coming. Your actions have set something in motion that can't be stopped. Keep racing. Keep winning. The universe is watching, and more importantly, it's starting to act." As the transmission ended, a determined silence fell over the bridge. They had won a crucial victory, but the real battle was just beginning. Hack looked around at his crewmates, his family, and felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever impossible odds they might face, he knew they would face them together. The broken promise had lived up to its name once again, breaking the promises of corrupt officials who thought they could control them. And in doing so, they had kindled a spark of hope that threatened to ignite a galaxy-wide flames of change. As they prepared for their next race, Hack knew one thing for certain: the crew of the broken promise was no longer just racing for their own freedom. They were racing to free an entire system from the shackles of corruption. And they were just getting started. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.